Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, and today we'll be talking about data transformation with WWT expert Brian Koehler. Brian leads Worldwide Technology's data streaming practice, and he works with our clients to architect and implement complex data platforms. He started his career as a software developer, so he brings that sort of mindset to his work on data governance, data transformation, and all those kinds of related topics. So please welcome Brian. Brian, good to see you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it being here.
How is it to be here in St. Louis?
It's great to be back.
Good.
Yeah. Born and raised here, so it's always good to come back with the family.
Come back and visit, because you're not based in California, right?
Exactly, yeah, San Francisco.
Cool, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and let's jump right in. So I know out in the marketplace, we're often hearing about digital transformation, but you're here to talk with us more about data transformation. So how do those go together, and tell us more about data transformation?
So digital transformation is that evolution of a company, of a business, as they transition into more of that digital space. So think of, moving from those analog, point of sale systems, from, the in-person interactions with the banks, from your branches, and moving towards those more mobile, the digital interactions, the apps and websites and everything that you see now. Like that's really kind of that first generation, that first leap into modernizing a company's business. So data transformation is really what works behind the scenes to enable all of that. And data transformation is arguably the most important aspect of this, because without data transformation, digital transformation it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. Mm-hmm. So with data transformation, it's really taking a look inside your company, inside how things work, and understanding your landscape and saying, okay, what do I need to do to become competitive in this market? We've all heard, the recent buzzwords recently around AI, different technologies like that, sure. But it goes beyond that. Really, data transformation is how you really apply new and evolving techniques to how you operate as a business. So, for example, you think back in the day where, you have, just a large database sitting in your company that, really serves up a lot of business purposes, serves up a lot of business use cases, and people started to realize, okay, we need something that's more efficient. So, let's start moving to, ETL. There's extracting data out of one system, moving it into somewhere that's more efficient, a bit more purpose-built. Mm-hmm. Really now, there's a lot of technologies and paradigms that are coming into play that take that a step further. You talk about technologies, you're talking about data streaming technologies, you're talking about concepts like data mesh. All of these things are really what's going on in the back and behind the scenes, mm-hmm. that really push forward and enable companies to stay competitive and really enable that digital transformation.
Right, and so that data absolutely sits at the core of everything, right? So hence the data transformation is really key to drive really anything a business wants to do. So as companies kind of work on this out there, like what do they find to be the hardest part, right? And how long does it ever end? How long does it take?
Never ends. Yeah. It really never ends. It's a journey. It's all about the journey. You hear that all the time. It's sure. Not about the destination. However, it's good to have that destination in mind. You need to know where to go. So the hardest part is, number one, figuring out where to go. So where are you going? Where are you taking your company? What are you wanting to do? How important is this data to you? Obviously, data is the new gold these days. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to have that mindset around putting your data first and foremost and treating data as your first-class citizen. So the hardest part that I've found when working with clients is really getting organizational buy-in into what a data transformation means and how that can benefit the company. Because a lot of times you're speaking with clients and it is all about ROI, return on investment. So figuring out how to realize that ROI with data transformation in some tangible way to make sure that the transformations that you do, the transformation that you take your company through, that journey is worth it. So the people and processes is always the most difficult piece, but also it's navigating the landscape, this ever-changing landscape of the different technologies and concepts that different companies are employing, and also understanding what doesn't work for you, right? Because you can hear about these, and take Agile for example. Agile's great, and the first, a lot of times it was, okay, what do I need to do to be Agile, right? It's like, what steps do I need to follow? Well, right, if you take that concept and apply it to data, you're already kind of missing the point, because it's not steps 1, 2, and 3. It's never that simple. It's always about what do I need to do to get to from point A to point B, right? It's about that and about what works for you. So figuring that out is always very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I want to build on that a little bit, because I know you started your career as a software developer, and in my experience as well, it seems like a lot of data was sort of born out of what does this business application need to do, and therefore there are data structures behind it. But it sounds like data transformation is really more thinking about data in and of itself broadly within an organization, perhaps in conjunction with, but sort of independent from all those business applications. Is that fair to say?
It is, yes. And
because that's a different mindset for organizations to take.
Absolutely. So changing it up from thinking about what applications do I need to provide business value, and then having being a second thought of, okay, what data do these applications produce? If you flip that on its head and say, okay, what is my data? What does that data need to do for my company? And then start building all of your processes and applications around that, you'll be much more successful. Yeah. So definitely a different approach from the traditional software engineering, where you're focused on the core application. But you can actually take that same analogy and just say, your business is an application, and what do you need to do to architect that in such a way to make sure your business application functions properly?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so another key aspect of data transformation is data governance. And so I'm curious, I'm imagining you're speaking with many of our clients about, their data governance approaches. How do organizations support efficient, effective data transformation through thoughtful data governance?
Yes, data governance is very important. It's
probably not easy too,
no,
right?
It is not. We actually have a whole practice right now dedicated to data governance. So it really is, a core piece of our strategy whenever we take our clients through data transformation. So data governance is there to put the guardrails in place, to make sure that you're not going out of the rails, you're not doing anything crazy, that you as a business have specific goals and that you're following those goals. But also you have to balance that with not doing too much up front. Because a lot of times it's, okay, we need to bring in this data governance framework, we need to have these rules in place, we need to have X, Y, and Z here. But if you do that too early, you kind of lock yourself into a specific format, if you will, and it's really hard to get out of that. You've now kind of created process for the sake of process. There are absolutely certain things that need to be in place up front, but again, just like software development, just like anything else, you need to be flexible. You need to understand that it's not a cut and dry system. What works for this company might not work for you, and it's a common theme that we found, and it's why this is also difficult, is because everyone thinks, oh, I'm just going to implement this product, and I'll get all of these benefits. It does bring a lot of benefits, but at the end of the day, it's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, and I want to build on that a little bit too, that there's all the talk of AI now and AI governance, and it seems to me that that's in part a flavor of data governance, right? Or that AI should be informed by data governance. Are you seeing organizations think about that in the marketplace as well?
A bit, yes. So, a lot of our projects we haven't really touched. We haven't done the AI work. We have a lot of data scientists that do a lot of machine learning. My practice specifically focuses a lot on really enabling different, what would you call them? Different business units, different domains within a company to operate independently and effectively, but together. So we're really that common thread that creates that foundation of data, of a data platform for the data scientists, for the data engineers, for your business intelligence. Yeah. For all of those to work together and make sure that within the data governance, make sure that the rules are in place, and if you have your AI team come in and they have to follow the exact same rules, but AI being a very special case, there's a lot more that goes into that than everyone else.
Yeah, sure. And I know that there's a lot more to it than just the data, but
Of course.
I know those things are going to have to be interoperating quite a bit, and I'm sure that's stuff that you're going to be running into more and more the way things are going, right?
Yeah, it's just starting right now.
Just getting started, yeah, for
we'll see where
sure.
it goes.
Well, so as people think about kind of moving forward with a data transformation strategy, a risk that they may have is kind of carrying forward tech debt that they've accumulated. So how do you counsel client organizations to do the transformation effectively and know how to leave behind that tech debt?
Yeah, it goes back to the people and processes, because with tech debt, it's very easy to dismiss something as not tech debt. So the first step is to really understand.
This. It's okay, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's been here forever. It's a critical piece of our organization. We cannot touch that. Well, other people have lived without this, for forever, and you built a dependency around something. So, number one, understanding what tech debt is, and also, number two, understanding what might not be tech debt now that could be tech debt in the future as you go through your transformation. So it's really important, again, having that plan in place to say, okay, this is where we're going, and we realize that maybe this doesn't quite fit to where we're going to be. So if you understand that up front, and you can then be a lot more efficient and not carry that with you, you can optimize for that. Be careful about too much pre-optimization, but we've found that really doing a thorough analysis of the current landscape helps a lot to really help the client understand what they have and maybe what they don't have. So it's really making sure having a plan in place, tried and true methods to take our clients along those journey has really helped us to minimize a lot of that tech debt.
Yeah, and I imagine that's also much like we talked about the data transformation as a journey and not a destination. Even though you keep your destination in mind, the tech debt you have to keep revisiting to kind of make sure that you're tending to that over time, right?
Always, yes. And it's just like in software development, it's important to always clean your house a little bit. So it's never want to just leave it. There is business value, there is return on investment for maintaining that tech debt. Same with software engineering, same with data transformation. It's always good to keep it tidy.
Well, tell us about some of the key technologies that organizations are using as part of their data transformation programs. And how do those technologies help? How do they fit into the fabric of the broader technology footprint organizations have? And how do people decide which ones to pick?
Yeah, there's a lot of choices out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like we shine in that area a lot as a trusted third-party consultant. We have we're not really tied to any particular vendor or client or software. We do have our favorites. We do have ranking systems on how we know what's best for certain situations. But as the lead of the data streaming practice, one might assume that we're very partial to Kafka. It's Apache Kafka is an open source log-based distributed platform that was created in 2012 by LinkedIn, and has gone on to become one of the largest data platform frameworks, I would say, almost in the world. But a lot of the Fortune, I think the number at this point is over 90% of the Fortune 100 companies see that as a mission critical framework. And so as we specialize in that, we really understand the nuances around what technologies go in that support it, what architecture support it, how to use it correctly. So yes, Apache Kafka is number one and foremost in our repertoire. There's obviously many flavors of that.
Yeah.
Others would be Snowflake. You're talking the data warehouses. Redshift. All the different cloud native providers have their own flavor of data warehouses and event streaming platforms that we really help our clients navigate. So I would say, but again, just to reiterate, Kafka and data streaming specifically is the number one motivator right now.
Yeah, well, tell us more about how you counsel people to sort of come up with their criteria to make those choices. Like, what are there checklists you run through? Do you have a workshop? Does it depend on the organization? How do you help people kind of decide?
Yeah, we certainly have checklists, and then we approach each of our clients differently because they come to us with different business use cases. So it's always a challenge to figure out, what works best for them. We don't like to take a one-size-fits-all approach, so our checklists are more of, kind of sanity checklists. And then as we move into, a workshops and we figure out, really what are they trying to do. So they'll come to us and say, hey, we have this problem with, our data isn't moving fast enough, or we can't get insights quickly. We need to move data from point A to point B. So that's a very tactical request that we get a lot. So what we try to do is we dig under the covers a bit and say, okay, what are you actually trying to do? What is the business value that you're trying to create? So based on that, we figure out, we kind of run through the laundry list of different technologies and what works best for them. Additionally, we apply a strategic approach to this as well. So beyond just the business value, we take the approach of, okay, what's going to set you up for long term? What's going to really help you achieve value as a company? So, different technologies have different benefits, but we found that, a lot of legacy systems, a lot of legacy companies really struggle with just managing data overall. So that's a bit straightforward for us, is we can say, hey, we have experience in creating these data platforms that really unlock the business value, and these are the technologies that we do with it, that we use it for. Mm-hmm. And then just we explain to them, and then it's pretty easy for them to then realize, okay, this is the way we need to go. We understand, and then really it's technology a second, because they've seen then that this is what we're proposing is actually what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, so increasingly, I think organizations out there, in addition to managing their internal data transformations, they're starting to integrate their data with other third parties, right? Either within the supply chain, other partners they may have, and so forth. So, how do you counsel organizations to do that both efficiently and securely?
Great question. So, I would say the main way we solve this problem is by helping our clients understand by looking at different parts of their organization, their own internal organization as clients. So once you do that, you can then start to look at even external organizations, or even subsidiaries, or however you're organized, as clients as well. So when you think of data as really a first-class citizen, and you put all the processes around it, and you really put the governance in place to make sure that data is secure, trustworthy, if you do that, if you take care of yourself first, really it becomes sharing your data externally is almost second nature at that point, because you've internalized that within your company, and you've said, I put these processes in place, and it's a matter of maybe some configuration, firewall rules, if you're talking technical things.
Sure.
To say, hey, these same APIs that we're sharing internally with our teams can now be shared externally as well.
And are you seeing that those requests to make those integrations are increasing in the market? Is that happening more and more? Is it kind of stable, or how's that playing out so far?
I would say sharing data externally from your company has always been a challenge. And I feel like it's been pretty stagnant for a long time as far as how that's done. It's a lot of REST APIs. It's a lot of, maybe file sharing, FTP transfers, things like that. And there's a huge marketplace to really, I think, transform that particular form of data sharing. And that is certainly an investment that we're making internally on how we approach that particular problem set. But there's a lot of up and coming features with some products that we use with our clients. For, let's say, Kafka, for example. There's a lot of features that are coming in place that we can now utilize to make that a much more seamless process. For example, with Kafka, when you have such a wide adoption of a particular technology, just like REST API was, your REST interface was, you're getting a new standard now that's enables that to be much, much easier.
Well, and I imagine that's going to get even more difficult the more and more devices that go into IT infrastructures and even operational technologies that are, generating data, right? And becoming part of that data transformation problem set that organizations have. All right. So let's imagine then we've got, a prospective client who's wanting to really get started with a data transformation journey. It's time to figure this out. We want to get started. They're coming to you and they're asking you, like, what do we do? How do you start that conversation? How do you get people underway?
Yeah. So the first thing is, kind of like I mentioned before, is really understanding where they're wanting to go and where they're at currently. So it's what are the core business values to the company? What generates the revenue? How do they stay in business? And how do we increase that? So I think a couple key drivers are going to be decreasing risk, increasing revenue, and reducing cost. So those are the three main drivers that we look at to figure out how we approach a particular problem set. Those would be the high level strategic drivers. And as we go in more deeper with that, we really start to look into maybe some different verticals within the company. If you're looking at finance, if you're looking at internal IT logging monitoring, or you're looking at microservices, in particular how the applications are built. So really we want to focus on one particular area first that really helps the client achieve a return very quickly, but that sets a foundation for all the future work. So we really like taking an initial use case because, well, let's face it, changing the world, changing everything all at once, no one wants to do that. Every CEO, every CFO is going to say, look, I don't want to spend this money. We don't know how it's going to go. Let's create a test ground for this first. So you always start small, prove it out, and show that how that can expand to the rest of the business. And where we excel is by the data platforms, the data transformations that we do for one particular part of the organization is very easily scalable to the rest. So it's really creating reusable patterns, making sure that data is reusable, making sure that everyone understands where the data is, how they can access it, all the governance and controls are in place. And then really just, once you're there, the realization becomes obvious. And then, hopefully they can pick it up from there and kind of run with it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, who typically owns digital transformation in the client organizations? And maybe they're related, who should own that if it's a variance?
Yeah, I won't get into who should own it, but who does own it? I've seen, the chief financial officer come in and say, we need this, from a reducing cost perspective, we need to change the way we're doing things. Or, honestly, like CTO, owns it a lot. Technology officers who come in and say, we have all this infrastructure, we have all this technology. How do we manage it better? But really, I feel like the chief information officer, the person who understands how the company operates, in my mind, I guess could be a very good owner for this because it's about data at the end of the day. It's not necessarily about the processes and the people, or the applications, I should say, that are going into that. It's really about the information that's flowing through the company, and it is really the lifeblood of the company.
Yep. And it also sounds like it needs to be a little bit of a shared responsibility too, right?
Yeah. I never would want one person to own that.
Although those leaders really need to own it.
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I always like to kind of wrap sessions like this with our experts, asking them to look out into the future. So if you think about, the next 2, 3, 5 years in this data transformation space, what are you excited to see? What's coming up?
So, obviously with artificial intelligence, AI, that's obviously one to keep an eye on. The way it's blossomed so quickly recently is certainly, it's going to change how we operate. It's certainly going to change how we interact day to day with our applications. Just our day-to-day life is going to change. Additionally, I feel like you never reduce the amount of data that you're generating. It's always increasing. So it's going to be interesting to see how companies start managing this exponential growth of data, especially with AI coming into the picture. I feel like there's certain technologies and concepts that are better equipped to handle that than others. And yeah, just, the technology landscape is ever changing. So, I'm just looking forward to seeing what's new.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that's fun and exciting about what we do, right? It continues to change. You have to always be learning new stuff and testing out new technologies, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, thanks so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. And thank you for coming as well. It's another great WWT Experts session. Got plenty more coming up in the future. A great back catalog out on wwt.com/events. That's where you'll find all that stuff. Thanks for coming today, and we'll see you next time.